Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers.
Just as a heads up, there is an incident of explicit language about midway through this episode. Thank you.
Hello, empaths. Today we're talking about connecting with your animal guides, earth magic, and so much more with our special guest, Dr. Stephen Farmer, who's a licensed psychotherapist, shamanic practitioner, and author of several best-selling books and oracle cards, such as Animal Spirit Guides, Healing Ancestral Karma, and lots of oracle decks on connecting with your animal guides and ancestors. He's certified as a somatic experiencing practitioner and an EMDR. Dr. Farmer also offers a popular individualized spiritual mentorship and life coaching program, and you can check out his fantastic podcast, Healing for Your Soul. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Farmer. Before we dive into your fascinating work, you've written so much about nature spirits and earth magic and animal guides. I'm just curious what it would be like to take a walk in the woods with you.
It's interesting that you say that term, walk in the woods, because I was just reviewing a manuscript, and this person, I can't name names, but this person is going to be publishing the books, and it's about a magical journey through the woods where she meets several spirit animals. So walk in the woods is appropriate that you bring that up like a confirmation. I'm going to pass that along. It's one of my clients, so I'll pass that along. I've been, Samantha and Denise, I've been just, the best way I'd say it would be called to do this kind of work. And in general, I think the umbrella idea would be spirit guides that, like there's an African tradition, and I can't recall exactly right now, but they say that God or great spirits too big to talk to directly. So they work through the ancestors and through the nature spirits and the animal spirits, which I find very interesting. It makes it more accessible, I think, that I can notice something like a hawk flying overhead in a very obvious way. And I can, with a little bit of practice, I can learn to discern the message. Some people say that would be a symbol. Yeah, in a way, it's a symbol, but it's a real live bird. But I see it more as potentially a representative of the larger collective consciousness of all of that particular being. In other words, not divvying up in this kind of hawk, but hawk spirit. And that's where it gets juicy and where it gets really helpful. And just to conclude all that, I think in general, these days, because of the complexity of the world and what's going on, and the media slams stuff in our face, all the time. Well, that sounds like a victim, doesn't it? We read about it, of course we're interested in the news and all that. But I think we need all the guidance that we can get, and not from CNN or or just from a neighbor or something like that, but really go to as close to the source, capital S, as we can. And one of those vehicles or means of doing so is, you could say, spirit animals, and also in general nature spirits. So it's very useful. I found it very, very helpful, and to understand how life works in a different way. And that we're, as I wrote, I also an itinerant wannabe rock and roll star songwriter, singer too. And there's one line in one of the songs is, "You're never alone wherever you are. There's someone beside you to show you the way." Always, always. And I mean that 120%, always. But we are practiced at sort of shutting down that, or not being familiar with even, how do we do this? Our ancestors did it, long ago ancestors. How can we tune in? Well, there's not just myself, but other people I know that are teaching this sort of thing, and thankfully. So anyway, that's kind of a broad sweep of what I am very grateful to be doing in the world and the service that I offer.
I love that.
And that is exactly the way, the interconnectedness of all of it.
the healing that needs to take place on a global level. And I've said this so many times, our listeners are probably tired of hearing it, but we all have the ability to tap into that collective consciousness and to come together in unity with all of nature. And what really hit me is I was in the path of totality for the recent eclipse, and I was very blessed to be where there were no other people, and I was by myself, and I just talked to one of my sons for a few minutes, and it was at that moment of totality, there was such a wave of emotion and connection to spirit that it was deep, it was core, it was soul. And I think that's what you're talking about, is when you're able to connect with the essence of these animals and these spirits and all that is, you're becoming part of it, not just an observer. I love and with reverence core shamanism. And I think that we all are hunter-gatherers if we go back far enough. Could you talk about how shamanism is available for everyone and it doesn't have to be a direct lineage?
Oh, absolutely. And I first want to thank you for what you had to say about the eclipse. And what occurred to me, what came up as you were talking about it too, is how it replicates in a certain spiritual and symbolic way death and rebirth. Here's the sun. Ooh, gets blocked out. Our ancestors probably had no idea why or how. So the mythologies were created around what was happening then. By mythologies, by the way, just to qualify that, there's something to mythologies. It does touch a deep core. It's like hearing stories. Some stories will touch us at a deep core of our heart, our essence, our soul. And so I believe that that's, even with the intellectual knowledge of what's going on, the moon is crossing the sun, it's so much deeper. And I think, Denise, you expressed it very well. It goes much, much deeper into our own ancestral heritage, if you will, deep ancestral heritage. Now I forgot the question, but I wanted to comment on what you had.
Well, thank you. And it really hit me emotionally more than I expected it to. It was incredibly deep core. We all have the ability and the choice to tap into core shamanic practices. And personally, I think that that's vital for helping to heal the world right now.
Yeah, thank you again for reminding me. I am a licensed psychotherapist still, so I had a very active practice for a number of years. And it's not an ambition or a goal so much as a calling, that we're called to these various studies. And one certainly that has taken off in the last few years is shamanism. It's becoming somewhat of a household word, if you will. And it really is more, contains within it its heartbeat. Shamanism, core shamanism, is what Michael Harner really largely responsible for teaching so many people about some of the basic principles and practices that are relatively common to a lot of indigenous cultures, but with different clothing, cultural clothing. They show up in different ways, would be one way to describe it. I tell you, I went into an introductory workshop. I got his book, Michael Harner's book, Way of the Shaman. He's ancestor now. Thank you, Michael. A friend had given me the book, and I went, wow, this is interesting stuff. This is really tickles a nerve inside here somewhere. So I thought, well, I'm going to sign up for the 2-day course, and just see what happens. It's one of my favorite phrases. I always go, try it, see what happens. I shot out of there going up to Michael like I remember an old cartoon show where the figure was dancing around the larger figure, going, what do you think? What do you want to see? I felt like that, I'm asking, can I go on? What about the 3-year program? Okay. It's almost like he didn't say this, but it's almost like, whoa, boy, slow down a little bit. Before you go to the 3-year program, we're doing a 2-week intensive at Esalen in California. So go there and have the great opportunity there to do some further work with Michael and also Sandra Ingerman, who's also an exceptional teacher, and has really contributed a lot to this field. So shamanism, I think, and again, it does awaken something really quite deep. And there are certain practices, and it isn't about becoming, and I got to stress that. It's not about an ambition or becoming a shaman. That's not the point. Let's use the term shamanic practitioner. There are truly some people that perhaps rightfully so can be called shamans. Go to Peru, go to Ecuador, go to other parts of the world, Mongolia, and you'll find people there that rightfully, they've been at it. There's been a lineage and an ancestral lineage that has really carried them up to this point. So, but it is about having shamanic practice, or in my case, I do call myself, in addition to a psychotherapist, a shamanic practitioner, because I do treatments with people. And I've got a range of possibilities, as you mentioned, Samantha, in bio, that I can draw from. And I feel really grateful about that. So people may come to me for shamanic work, or they may come for me for, you could say, soul work, psychotherapy, trauma treatment, etc. So I've got a range of clients that I have worked with in the past, and then increasingly so as shamanic practice became a focus. In fact, such a focus that a year and a half after that introductory course, I took a 3-year training, and then after that, I went, okay, I got to close the practice, the therapy practice, and for a while devoted a period of time on offering different kind of shamanic treatments. And then I realized I had this kind of epiphany at one point. I went, Stephen, what are you doing? You've got a lot of stuff that you've got training in before. So how about we bring that in too? So that was a few years back. Anyway, I think that just the last thing I want to say about shamanism and shamanic practice, excuse me, I really encourage people to check into it, because it operates in a different way, and it operates away from a different sense of awareness and consciousness. And the more you immerse yourself in that awareness and that consciousness, the more, as you put it, Denise, the more you appreciate, not just on an intellectual level, but on an experiential level, the connectedness between all that is. I have moments where I just, and the best way I could say it, I have moments, I'm sure like the both of you, where I just get it, but it's not up here in my head. It's part of the deal, but it's just this, I'm getting chills right now, body chills, as I'll call out that memory of moments. Just, I can see out of the windows here, I can see the trees, and I almost want to come to tears. I can feel a little bit of tearfulness, but the tearfulness is more about joy and gratitude and love, that I can truly love this world no matter what's going on. I could truly walk in this world and just go shout it to the skies, thank you for this experience. And then more often than not, you experience the magic, what I would call, I'm not sure I have a better word for it, or one of the latest ones that I've been kind of playing with, because I love words and what they evoke. Years ago, I heard somebody praying. I was at an event at Omega in New York, and I don't know what to call her, she was taking care of me, showing me where I, blah, blah, blah. But we prayed, and she offered a prayer, and she said, "Dear great mystery, dear great mystery." And lately I've been really playing with that, trying that on, and it really fits. Is we have all of our points of view and experiences and all that, but really in the larger pocket here that we exist, it really is great mystery. And great mystery, not just mystery, but great mystery, or mystery and magic.
That's beautiful.
Little miracle.
Did
Go
that
ahead.
come easy to you? Because I only ask, I feel like you probably spent years and a lot of effort and time on such a phenomenal education to become a doctor, and then you're working on shamanism. I know for me, when I was going through my spiritual awakening, I was walking my dogs in the woods, and there was this tree, and she had these two branches that came out. And so when I sat at the base of the tree, I felt as though she were hugging me. And so I hugged her back, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, am I a tree hugger now?" And I really, you know,
Yes.
like I don't know, becoming that person. What was that journey of awakening like for you? Did you accept yourself and the great mystery of Dr. Farmer right away, or did you struggle with it a bit?
Well, I'll be quite candid with you. When I was introduced to shamanism, one of the things I learned about was plant medicine, spirit medicine, from with the use of the plants. Now we hear about it all the time here in Oregon. It's psilocybin. I have a colleague that does psilocybin therapy, and it's extremely useful. It really helps with PTSD and other kinds of things. But the short version is that a very dear friend and I, a brother, by a different mother, but his name is Bruce, who lives in Flagstaff, and he and I have known each other for years. And we would often get together and go camping, just get away for a while, something like that. And we have similar birthdays, both Capricorns, so that united us in that aspect as well. Anyway, so we were in the Ventana Wilderness, which is, most people think of it as Big Sur, but technically it's Ventana Wilderness, and we decided to camp out there, backpack. So we go through the route there, and there's a lot of up and down kind of things, and we find a spot and camp out. And then I had something called mushrooms with me. And part of the journey we knew was going to be go up on that mountain and do mushrooms. Now, listen, I'm a child of the 60s, okay? I experimented LSD, mushrooms, mescaline, everything. And it opened a doorway. But unfortunately, at that time, I and a lot of us didn't really have a way to put it in perspective. So now I'd had some other experiences and trainings and education, et cetera, that said, oh, this is not about tripping. This is not about seeing, things move and giggle and laugh and all, it's not what it's about. That may happen, but it's not what it's about. It's a sacred medicine. So with that intention, we went up the mountain, had a few experiences along the way that were kind of funny. And we cut it up, and then we ingested. Again, I'm going to cut to the chase. I wrote about this story in the book Ancestral Karma, Healing Ancestral Karma. But I'll cut to the chase. Basically, is the medicine started working, and I remember the more because it sort of, as you guys may know, I don't know if you know or not, but it hills and valleys, and the hills get higher, and the valleys you have a little resting period, and then you get another hill, and it continues to build like that, and it was really starting to get quite intense. And I remember even the other thing we do is how would I say it? Sounds grody say, but we vomit, we get rid of, we expel, what's not needed for the experience. And what happened is that in that I was down on my knees, basically, and there I could see with my slightly modified vision, an altar right there. And then the strangest thing started happening. This other being started speaking through my voice. And if I may be so bold to tell you exactly what he started saying, at first I knew I was going somewhere, and I didn't know, ego was starting to shrink, still there, but still kind of off in a corner, by himself, I think at some point. And I had to say to Bruce, I said, Bruce, just remember, you can't really fly. I'm out of here. I don't think I'm going to be around for a little while, so have fun. And he had talked about shape-shifting into an eagle or something like that. So then I was like totally focused on the journey as this being came in and spoke to me in an utterance of sound. I'm not even sure I'd called it a language, and told me his name, that it was 25,000 years ago, incarnated in a physical body, that I want the oldie deal. I'm not that important, that, you know, he would work with other people, etc. And it was pretty profound, to say the least. And then, you know, it changed my life. Put it bluntly, it changed my life. It pushed, or yeah, I'll say pushed. It prodded me into, I think, an even deeper understanding and awareness of, it sounds grandiose to say, but a deeper awareness of life, you know, and some deeper truths about life. We're not alone. We're never alone. We are operating right now. There are spirits abounding right here with us now. I can feel it in my body. Again, that slight tearfulness starts to well up, like appreciation and gratitude, and this being who gave me his name. And I wasn't allowed to share it for a few years. And then one day he gave me permission. So we continued our communication. His name is Ana Ooto. Ana Ooto. And thank you, Ana Ooto. See, I get tearful about it, just really out of gratitude. You can feel it. You can hear it in my voice. Yeah. Anyway, he then indicated, about 2 years later, I went to see a colleague, her, Ross and Barb. And Barb was in the 3-year training with me, with Michael Harder and Sandra Ingram. And she said, "Do you want to do some work?" And I said, "Sure." And Ross, her husband, would come in and drum. They had a whole room set aside for this work. He'd drum the shamanic beat, and then she would do some work with me. Well, what happened unexpectedly is she had a very Venusian kind of figure, so very soft and plush, you know, and comforting, very nurturing kind of feeling to her body, because I ended up my back against her torso, and she held on, she put her arms around me and held me. And what that did is it kicked off a regression when I died at 6 months of age. And I ran to the light. Oh, I want to back up just one other piece that I can say this. As the hills were getting higher back up on the mountain, I would joke and laugh. You know, I'd say something to my buddy, and then I'd laugh and giggle. And I want to say it this way: my right hand, dissociated from any sense of connection to my usual self, went up, as I'm still down on my knees, but upright, took my head and pushed it down to the ground and said, through my voice, in very clear English, "There's no fucking around with this stuff." Hope that was okay to say, but that's exactly what he said. You can edit that if you want, but it was like he put, not to hurt me, he didn't push me to go into the rocks, but it took me about I'm a stubborn Irishman sometimes. It took me about 4 times before I went, "Oh, okay, I surrender," you know. So I'm down with my head down for the rest of the evening. It was just interesting. Like he tolerated. No, and then he would soothe me. He'd take this hand that was detached, you know, from dissociated from any usual self, and stroke my forehead very gently. And as I'm doing now, you can't see it obviously, but as I'm doing now, and said, "And we love you." He didn't just mean me. He meant our species, our humans. So I wanted to tie that
That's
together.
beautiful.
Yeah, I'm jabbering away, aren't I?
No. And I really, really appreciate that you brought that into things, because it's not a party favor. It's not a just jump in and open doors that you're not ready to open. And it concerns me greatly. And I'm really glad that you brought up that you were with a dear friend when you were up on the mountain, and you had someone that was there to help you, or that you trusted, because I think that they are really, really big doors that people are opening when you choose to take that path. But you're right, it's not a game. It's really, you have to have respect.
So jump to the session I had with Barb, and where I regressed to 6 months old. And the short story of it basically was when I died, and I have some validation from my mother that talked about it too. You had double pneumonia, and we thought we lost you. Whew, I get chills again. I ran like crazy, or my soul, I would say, I'm out of here. There's a lot of suffering and pain on this planet, so I don't want to be here. So I ran to what I would call the gate, for lack of a better term. And guess who was there? Ana O'Oto. And again, his appearance was not uncommonly, as I've learned, is gray hair, elder, and that's what his presentation was. But he is standing there, and he takes his hand out, with his pointer finger up, going back and forth in that type of gesture, and saying, leaning right into my face and saying, not yet. I argued with him. I said, what do you mean, not yet? I don't want to go back there. That's a world of pain and suffering. And he goes, not yet. And it took him 3 times before I finally was convinced to go back in my body or my soul. And here I am, so not yet really worked to allow me to have this amazing experience. And I mean amazing with the suffering as well as the pleasures. Out of our suffering, there can be a lot of growth. You both probably recognize that, in your own experience, and as long as we can get through it, and not just through it, but we can inquire about what's the teachings, in this suffering, and how do I move forward? Great. But it's part of the deal. The body hurts. But here's a paradox right now is I am not my body. And the paradox, meaning both and. I am not my body, and I am. And that's where we need to live, in that paradox.
Mm.
Boom.
Yeah, that's huge.
It is cool, isn't it?
It is. It's very cool.
It's fun too. A lot of fun.
So do you feel that, and I don't want to disrespect your beautiful being that's been with you throughout this lifetime by not saying his name correctly. Do you feel that's a personal guide for you through this lifetime? Do you feel that it's just one of many? Because I know that we hear that a lot. How do I connect with my guides? How do I know that it's my guide? What would be, and to me, that's a very, very personal experience, deeply personal experience. And I think that some people are able to perceive or receive input from other people's guides, and other people like myself, I share that on my own. I don't go to someone else to tell me your guide is so and so. What would be some ways people would be able to, because I always say thank you, and I heard you just say thank you to your person as well, to your spirit. How can our listeners feel more connected to their guides?
Simple, and thank you for the question, Denise. First off, that was really a very intense experience. I would not advise it or recommend it, the way to go. It's much simpler ways to go, but you got to practice it. It being the communication with the natural world, and not just the natural world, like you were saying, Samantha, about, that tree, and hugging the tree. And am I a tree hugger, having those doubts about whether I don't want to go down that path. But it was something more than that, that there was a connection of some sort of felt connection. That's why I think there's so many people that are out of body, or bodily awareness. And I am such an advocate of, you've heard me, I've trained myself well, or been trained. Pay attention to what's going on in your body, because that will tell you a lot right there. Anyway, the simpler way would be, let's start with animal spirit guides. We see animals all the time, whether they're the physical animal or a symbol of the animal, like a show on television. or a truck that comes up, like happened to me one time, and there was a big snake on the truck. And I just had another experience with snake, or seeing a snake symbolically prior to that. So here's my 25 words or less, formula. And that is, when an animal appears to you in an unusual way and or repeatedly, especially in a short space of time. So I'll repeat that. When an animal appears in an unusual way or repeatedly, then something pretty big is going on. That animal becomes a messenger to help you along the path, your life path. And again, it could be the physical animal. It could be a symbol of the animal. Again, a portrait or just something, but especially repetition with anything really is a pretty big deal, but specifically with animals. So that around here, I just moved to Ashland about a month ago, and it's so fascinating because there's deers that will be hanging out by the road, and there's turkeys, and so that's not unusual now. They're there, but when a turkey crosses right in front of me, then I pay attention and I take it into my world, so to speak, which is, I wonder if there's a message here. And there's I'd say probably about 3 ways that you can get messages. You can discern what the message is for some experience like that. Or the hawk flying overhead, or you're down at the ocean and you see like a bubble of dolphins, swimming right in front of you. You can't avoid it, that kind of thing. 3 ways. 1, great thing we got right in front of us typically is a computer that takes us to the internet. And I would type in whatever the animal's name is, like turkey spirit, dolphin spirit, animal spirit guide dolphin, animal spirit guide hawk, animal spirit guide buffalo, and see what comes up. And typically you'll find sites that say, this is what it could mean. Well, I go back to body. When you read, let's say 4 or 5 items that are possible messages, number 4 just kind of jumps out at you and you can feel it. It resonates with you. You get a sense of the truth. And that's one way. Look it up on the internet. It's okay to do that, especially if this is a kind of new for you. Go ahead and look it up. Second is books, not only my own, but there's a few books. Ted Andrews was an inspiration, animal speak. And so I wish he'd had a better editor, but that's just my observation, but the great information in there, and was an inspiration, for some of my other work, animal spirit guides, etc., and the oracle cards. And I really do feel like I was working for the animals, and I'm okay with that. I didn't get paid that much for working with the animals, but the other things helped a little bit, the oracle cards and the books and such. So anyway, that's one way, is look it up. Second is books. But third way, okay, everybody listening, pay attention. Third way, and this is what I'd like to see people get to, not just with animals, but with other beings, nature spirits, religious or spiritual figures, ancestors, etc. Ask. The principle is direct revelation, which is a very distinct principle in shamanism, direct revelation. You go to the source. In other words, I might have written certain things based on my research for, let's say buffalo, just for instance. And I go, okay, buffalo, abundance, that's what I read. And that's one really clicks with me, pay attention, abundance, treat things like money is not my supply. Like I've got a whole affirmation that I took from the John Randolph Price's book, Book of Abundance. So I think, okay, abundance. And that probably resonates, it would if a buffalo appeared before me, or like somebody wrote me and said, or shared that they had to stop their car because a herd of buffalo was crossing the road somewhere in Colorado, I think it was. Well, that's pretty significant. And I would say, I call that unusual. So, buffalo spirit, what's your message? And you say it telepathically or you say it out loud. And then this is the key. Once you've asked the question, what's your message? Hawk spirit, dolphin spirit, horse spirit, what's your message? Then pay attention to everything you see, hear, and feel immediately after. And sometimes that comes and hits you right in the forehead, like real clear and specific. I love those kind of messages, don't you? When you go, well, good. Okay, thank you. I didn't have to think much about that one. That was pretty clear, turn left. Okay. Are you sure? But anyway, turn left. Those I love, but sometimes they're kind of cryptic, like you wake up from a dream and go, wow, that was a cool dream. What did it mean? So you ask, and then you pay attention to your senses, what you see, hear, and feel. And when I say feel, I don't mean emotion necessarily, but what goes on in your body as a response to the inquiry. And I tell you, I really encourage you people, again, first off, use the internet, find a book, Animal Spirit Guides, great book, all false humility aside, it was a work of love. And there's really good information in it. However, I want you to move from any dependence on that kind of information into more direct revelation. That's my pitch to everybody who's listening, but don't, try it. Again, here comes that phrase. See what happens.
No, that's absolutely fantastic advice. How can we tell the difference between an animal guide and an animal messenger? And does it matter?
No, I think that I use the terms interchangeably, like animal spirit guide, spirit animal. Again, I use that term as an animal spirit guide sometimes, or an animal messenger. They're there to get a message to you when the qualification, as I said, is unusual or repeatedly. But either way, it doesn't matter what you call it, but yes, you're getting a message, you're getting guidance. So it's hard to separate those, they're different terms. And again, I love words, but they're essentially the same. You're listening or attending to the message from a particular spirit animal that is represented often by a symbol or the physical appearance of that animal. You dream about lion. What's that mean? Boom, right away, what I hear, a lion spirit. What's your message? I got a message. The metaphor was roar. The detail of the message real quickly, because I hear things in the inner voice. That's one of my body sensations, and inner voice is often where I receive the messages more than visual, and that's how I get the messages. Other people are more visual. Great. Roar. I'm a little distracted because this is very similar to, I do downloads pretty much every morning. I just listen and then transcribe. But it's basically that it's time for me to take chances with speaking. I hesitate to say my truth, but here's the corker that I got this morning, and it makes me then nervous if I'm supposed to write about this or do it. But twice it was repeated as I transcribed it. There is no such thing as free will. There is no such thing as free will.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wow, isn't it? I'm stuttering as I even share that. And again, my body gets chills because I get it. I don't understand it, but I get it. And here's my take on it at this point. It'll change, I'm sure, but ego is a tricky part of us and often wants to lay claim even to what we might call spiritual messages or choices. How do we really know that the choices we make are of our free will? If you ponder that, and I would suggest pondering it, just ponder it. Maybe it's true. Just try it on. Don't believe me and don't disbelieve me. Just try it on. I had a wonderful teacher one time that said that, and mentor, and she was puzzled by it too. So don't feel alone if it's a little puzzling. But again, it may be that paradox I referred to earlier. There is and no, there isn't. There's a larger force at work in every breath we take, every choice, in quotes. I don't like people that do that. You can't see this, but I'm doing finger quotes around the word, around the words. And I'm going, no, Stephen, you just didn't do that, did you? Yes, I did. Anyway, do we really have free choice? Do we really have free will? Uh, we'll see, stay tuned, it might come up in a book or
Well, that I'm definitely going to tune in for, because that's one of the things when I'm working with people, I'll always say anything that's intuition, divination, psychic is subject to change and free will, because I want to make sure that people still feel empowered with their own choices, and that if they're getting some kind of a message which is coming from spirit or from a loved one that's passed or from an animal guide, that they're still internalizing that and saying, you know what, yes, all those things are factors, but I have to go within and make my own choice about it. So I this is really, really fascinating to me as far as the free will
yeah, it's
component.
fun to play with, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hey,
it's fun.
I've been gradually watching this series on Netflix called Three Body Problem. And first of all, I have science fiction from way back. I love good science fiction, let's put it that way. And this is definitely science fiction, but boy, there's some just very mind-bending stuff in this series. So I want to recommend that to you guys and all your listeners. Check it out. You may or may not like it, but I'm really absorbed and fascinated by the creativity that went into this. Three Body Problem.
Yeah, I know. I started watching it and I was like, oh, wait, I need to be in a place where I can focus. Because I watched the first episode and I was like, holy cow, so much is going on. I was trying to do too much while it was on. So yeah, I definitely want to check that out. They have another good one on Netflix, Unexplained Files. That's brand new. I wish they did more of those shows about all this beautiful mystery that surrounds us. I just wanted to let you know, I know we're kind of running out of time here, but for years, I have three daughters. The youngest is now 18. But for years, when I was driving them to school, I had your children's spirit animal card deck, the Oracle deck, in my car. And I mean, like, I think Dr. Farmer 12, 14 years, every day, it was in the console of my minivan, and I'd pull it out, and each of my daughters would shuffle and pull an animal for the day, and we'd talk about it and reflect on it. And it was just such a beautiful way for them to connect with their intuition, their spirituality, to be observers of the world around them, to see animals in a new light. And it's just such a childhood memory of theirs. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for that. And if anyone is parents of young kids, you've got to get that Oracle deck. It is gentle and beautiful and insightful. And it was always spot on for my kids.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah.
Mhm.
That was, I got to say, a collaborative inspiration with Karen, the publisher at Satyama, who actually printed and published the children's spirit animal cards. It was what a blessing. Thank you. Let me just leave it at that. Thank you for sharing that, because it is a cool deck, and
It
it does.
really is.
Yeah, it introduces children, to what we've been talking about here. And it's a great way. It's a nice segue. And what child doesn't love animals?
Yeah, and not in a scary way, you know. My youngest daughter, I remember she kept dreaming about owls. And she said, "Do you think the owl is my animal guide?" And I said, "Well, honey, it could be, or it could have a message for you. Why don't you ask and, see what comes up?" And so she said, "If owl is my guide, help me to see one in the next 3 days." And we happened to be downtown for a little riverfront market, and the exotic bird rescue people had a table up asking for donations, and their volunteer bird was an owl.
Well, yeah, if she needed any more confirmation than that, that's
Yeah, she had it right there. And at first she was a little scared because she had just asked that morning for that confirmation. And then when we saw it that afternoon, she was like, that's kind of spooky. But I reminded her of the cards. I reminded her of the beautiful message and the messages in her dreams. And she was like, oh, yeah, that is kind of cool. So it's just a beautiful service that you're doing, not only for adults, but for children too.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Denise. It's excuse me, Samantha. I'm sorry about that. Um, I think it's in spite of her reaction to the what, and you guys don't know this. Everybody's listening probably knows that synchronicities. That's the magic. When you go, I'm thinking about owls. Why am I thinking about owls? Oh, owls show up. Oh, and as a child, it was good that you were there to reassure her, that it wasn't in any way, shape, or form demonic or scary or something to, keep you awake at night. It's actually something very helpful. It's a guide. It's another way of guiding you, to be able to maybe see into the shadows, see into the darkness, be willing to open your eyes, be willing to uh, listen to the wisdom, hear the wisdom that comes through, not just owl, I mean, the wisdom, the universal wisdom, and yeah, good. I'm glad you like the deck.
It's great.
I would propose, I guess we're pretty close to the end here, is I'm going to pull a card if that's all right with the both of you.
I would love it.
Great, yeah.
My Oracle card decks, which this one I've been working with a lot. Messages from the spirits of nature, Thank you, spirits of nature. Thank you for a message that comes through in these cards. It's helpful to everyone listening in some way. I know the listeners can't see this, but I'll show it to you guys and then describe it.
Oh,
Beautiful.
The card is typically these cards are constructed in a way there's some aspect of nature, and then related to that is the spirit of that aspect. And then there's typically a one or two words that's associated with the theme or the spirit of nature. This one is love, is rose. And I cannot tell you, there's a very brilliantly colored red rose, just like looking right at you from the cards. And the title of the nature spirit is Rose. And the one word message is love. Now, listen, guys, all you people listening, that's your job today, or your assignment, more accurately, not your job. I want you to go out there and stay as much as you humanly can in that place of love, compassion, and gratitude. And what I discovered in doing research for an article is the vibration or the frequency of love is just a tiny bit under the vibration of gratitude. Now, that's pretty heavy right there. So love, compassion, and gratitude. And thank you, spirits of nature, for sending this message to every one of us, all three of us here, as well as everybody who's listening to this podcast. It's a good message.
Thank you.
And do your best.
Yeah.
Don't try to be perfect at it. Do your best, I have this thing I do with whining. I call it whining. And I'm very clear. I don't mind if I whine, but I don't want to dwell there. And how do I shift to be aware of when I'm whining without castigating or shaming or guilting myself or going, you're a spiritual teacher there, Dr. Farmer, you can't. No, none of that. I'm a human being. And I do whine, but again, I just don't want to live there. And I don't. But I'll go there. If I catch myself, I'll go, okay, you're whining, and then move on. Anyway, love, compassion, gratitude. Let's speak a truth here. We're human beings. We're imperfect and fallible. It's just the way it is. But here's the both and at the same time, spirit isn't expressing through us. Spirit is manifesting as us. A different way to consider it.
Mhm.
Not through us, because then that dissociates us from spirit to some extent. Just that one little word. No, spirit expresses as us. Period. Now, you can go to my website. That's the best way to find what I'm up to as a resource, and it's drstephenfarmer.com.
Well, thank you so very much for doing this with us today, because your work has not only influenced so many people over the years, but you're very down to earth and grounded, and you normalize some topics that can be not, people aren't sure. They're not sure how to figure it out, and you just, the way you described everything, it's just, again, just trust yourself, be a part of it, pay attention, have respect, and the love, compassion, and gratitude is everything. So thank you very, very much. This has been exceptional.
It's been my pleasure to talk with you today too, and thanks for hosting me. I really know that this is my service. This is what I'm here to do. My purpose, as well as my service is the action. So thank you both. Thank you for doing what you're doing. We're all needed on the front right now, the front line.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Thank you so much. Such an honor to get to meet you this way. I've been a fan for years and years and years. And thank you everyone for listening. Please check out all of his work. Dr. Farmer will put all of his information and links in the show notes so you can connect with him right from there. And remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.